Hello everyone. Today we're going to do a Yin Yoga class in the Camel Back Mountain in Phoenix, Arizona. More specifically, Laura and I found this beautiful cave, most likely used by prehistoric Hohokam culture as a sacred site. Now, as a reminder about the practice, Yin Yoga should not be a painful practice. If anything hurts while in the pose, please back out of it. The basic simple rule is to get in the pose to the point of first resistance. Then relax, stay still, and try to meditate using your breath to remain in the pose for its duration. The first pose we're going to get in today is called Reclined Butterfly. This is one of my favorite postures because it brings a deep opening into the hips and the inner thighs, while at the same time opening your chest and heart. To get into the pose, roll up your blanket and place it at the base of your shoulders, like I'm doing in the video. Remember, the blanket should be at the base of the shoulders and not farther down. You should be in a comfortable position. As you're laying down, bring the sole of your feet together and let the legs fall out to the side. Use a block under your knees if you're experiencing too much pressure or pain. Yin Yoga is a practice that targets the deeper connective tissue of the body. Connective tissues consist of fascia, ligaments, bones and joints. Contrary to other styles of yoga that focus more on the superficial muscle tissue, the practice of Yin Yoga through muscle relaxation and the steady long-held floor poses allow us to gently stress the parts of our body that are usually not exercised. That's the connective tissue surrounding our joints. Although the slow pace of Yin Yoga can come across as too passive and too simple at first sight, its nourishing benefits to the body and mind will soon captivate you. The benefits of Yin Yoga are numerous. For simplicity purpose, they can be grouped into three main categories: physical, mental, and energetic. Physical. Yin tissue, like all body tissue, needs to be exercised to be healthy. However, Yin tissue does not respond well to the type of aggressive repetitive exercise usually applied at the muscular level. To exercise and rejuvenate Yin tissue, you need to apply long, steady, yet gentle stretches to the body parts being targeted. During a Yin Yoga posture, the muscles relax, allowing you to get to the deeper connective tissue. The gentle stress applied to the ligaments, joint capsules, and bones stimulates the cells to grow new tissues. The new tissue is stronger, thicker, and with time longer. Also, by targeting the joints and ligaments that surrounds them, we restore their natural range of motion. Slowly start coming out of the pose. Gently roll on one side and remove the blanket from behind your back and come back on your mat with your back on your mat. The next pose is called Happy Baby. So to get into the pose, bring your knees to your chest, grab the sole of the feet. If you can't reach the sole of your feet, grab your ankles or legs. Open the feet apart and pull the knees towards the side of your chest. Aim for the armpits. Make sure your head and shoulders are relaxed into the floor. This pose is a great deep hip opener. It also releases and decompresses the sacroiliac joint. So we spoke about the physical benefits of Yin Yoga before, and I'm going to address the mental benefit of practicing Yin Yoga. The regular practice of Yin Yoga teaches you how to go inside and listen. Through the practice of holding poses for a long time, you are creating stillness in your postures as well as in your mind. Holding the poses for a long time will challenge your body as well as your mind. You're going to get really intimate with your feelings, sensation, and emotions. During the pose, your mind will talk to you into quitting, getting out of the pose to seek immediate relief. It is at this right time that Yin practice conditions you to stay in the pose through the discomfort. It trains you to deal with discomfort instead of seeking immediate relief. You will learn to be more in control of your inner voices and thoughts. Very gently come out of the pose by bringing your sole of your feet down to the mat and start doing some windshield wiper as a counter pose, or let your body just find the pose and the stretching that it needs. Very gently come out to a seated position, and we're going to get ready for the next pose, which is Dragonfly. To get into the pose, spread your legs apart as much as you can, but remember, no pain. Now you can sit on a cushion if your pelvis has trouble tilting forward. And you can stay in this pose, that's perfectly fine, but if you can, try to fall forward. Rest your elbows on a block or on the floor, depending on your flexibility. Make sure the hips are rotated forward. This is a great pose that opens the hips, groin, and back of the thighs. I spoke about the health and the mental benefit of the practice of Yin Yoga earlier. I'll be talking about the energetic benefit. According to Chinese Taoism system, life energy called qi runs up and down our body through pathways called meridians. The free flow of this energy through meridians feed the organs, maintaining a healthy body. Due to different causes, like excess stress, the meridians can get blocked, thus causing the organs of the body not to function properly. A beautiful visual analogy used by Bernie Clark is that of thinking of an old hose left abandoned in the yard for many years. Over time, insects, mud, debris clog the hose. When we try to turn on the water, nothing might come out. We might have to bend, twist, and stretch the hose to undo the blockages and allow the water, or the qi in our case, to start flowing again. That's what the practice of yoga does to our body. Through the stretching, twisting, and compressing of our tissues, we unclog blockages and turn on the energy flow. Very slowly start coming out of the pose. Make sure as you come back up, your head is the last thing to come up. And use your hands to close your legs. Bring your legs back up. And as always, try to find the counter pose that your body likes. Wide windshield wiper is a great counter pose, as we have done a lot of hip openers, and this is an internal rotation of the hips, so it feels good. Next, we're going to get into square. To get into the pose, start by sitting with your legs crossed. Let's start with the right leg being in front. Now, try to push your feet forward so that your shins are parallel to the front edge of the mat. Be careful, if you have tight hips, you'll feel pressures on your knees. If you cannot push your feet forward, just keep your legs crossed in a way that there is no pain in your knees. This is a deep opening of the hips with a strong external rotation of the femur in the hip joints. When and if you can fall forward, it provides a nice decompression for your lower back. Now make sure the hips are tilting forward and not back. If this happens, sit on a blanket or a cushion to elevate the hips. Do not forward fold if you have issues in your back. A lot of people decide to practice yoga as a way to cope with stress. As mentioned before, practicing poses can bring relaxation to the mind. So, starting to practice yoga asanas or poses is the first step and the easiest one as a way to cope with stress. After all, it is easier to get into some basic yoga postures than to stand 1 hour meditating. Sweat, muscle contraction, or the heart rate going up during practice are all conditions that provide us with a sense of well-being. For a little while, we might feel calmer and relaxed. However, to cope with stress long-term, just physical exercise is not enough. That is when the mind comes into play. A trained, controlled mind is better prepared to respond to day-to-day stressful events. Holding the poses for 5 minutes in yoga often brings up discomfort. It is at this point that your mind will start talking you out of the pose. To seek immediate relief, it is at this right time that Yin practice conditions you to stay in the pose through the discomfort. It trains you to deal with discomfort instead of immediately fleeing from it. Very slowly and gently come out of the pose. Remember, your head should be the last things to come up. And find some relief by doing some windshield wipers again, or move around as a counter pose. You should feel, as you move around, like a very, very old person. And if that's the case, it means that the practice of yin is actually working. You are stressing the ligaments of your body and your joint capsules. So very gently we move to the other side, which is basically bringing forward your left leg. The practice of yoga has several levels of depth. The first layer, the most superficial one, is the physical aspect of the practice. Asanas can help us tone and stretch the body as well as release physical tension. At this level, the practitioner does not even use a proper breathing technique most of the time. As we move to a deeper layer, we start bringing awareness to the postures, coordinating breath with movement. At this level, we're not only benefiting from the physical practice, but we start feeling the positive changes at the mental and energetical level. From here, we become aware of other aspects of our life that can be positively impacted by the yoga practice. We might start reading books like the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali that help us to get a deeper understanding of this ancient practice. We might start exploring the philosophical aspect of the practice and start applying its principles to everyday life. The application of the 8 limbs of yoga as outlined by Patanjali brings us to an even deeper layer of the practice. At this stage, we are starting to use yoga not only during the actual practice on the mat, but on everyday actions, bringing more attention and awareness to every situation or action we embark. From here, we can move to an even deeper layer of yoga, which is the religious one. Regardless of the type of belief or non-belief, yoga brings us to become more aware of our higher self. It doesn't matter where and how you start your yoga journey. It doesn't even matter if you stop at the first step of your journey, which is the pure physical practice. The thing I love about yoga is that, just like a journey, it is ultimately up to you how far down the path of explorations you want to go. Mindfully start coming out of the pose, ragdoll up so that your head is the last thing to come up. As always, do the counter pose the most fits your body. I love wide leg windshield wiper. That's always a great counter pose. Ultimately, your body is smarter than your mind and it knows what it needs. So play around with the counter pose. Move around, see what the body needs. Next is Sphinx Pose. So come to your belly and just like a Sphinx Pose, move your elbows just a little ahead of your shoulders. If the compression of your lower back is too intense, move your hands forward to bring your chest closer to the mat. This is a great compression and stimulation of the sacrolumbar arch. More specifically, the L2 and L3 vertebra is where the door of life is located. It's very therapeutic for people with a bulging or herniated disc. By now, it's well documented how the mind and the body are connected to each other. A stressed mind will have negative effects on the body. A stressed and agitated mind causes increase in heart rate, breathing rate, muscle tension, elevation of cortisol, and other stress hormones. Through the practice of Yin Yoga, when combined to the proper breathing techniques, we target directly both the mind and the body. This is why this practice is so powerful. Through the poses, asanas, we relax the body, but it's through proper breathing associated to the asanas that we quiet our mind. Since the poses in Yin Yoga are held for a long time, you have the opportunity to get in a state of meditation. Remember that proper breathing plays a critical role in this practice. Very slowly come out of your pose. Now, if you like, you can come all the way down to the mat and rest there for a few breaths. Or you can come to child pose. Child pose is always a good pose when you want to relax. It provides a decompression of the lower back and a gentle opening of the hips. Now come back to all four and do a couple of circles with your hips in one direction and then the other directions. Move around, nice wide circles. The next pose is called Bananasana. To get into the pose, lay with your back on the mat and stretch your arms above your head and your legs out. With your buttocks firm into the ground, start moving your feet and your upper body to the right. Arch like a nice ripe banana. But be careful not to twist or roll your hips off the floor. Find your first edge of resistance. In order to understand the principles of Yin Yoga, we need to look at the Taoist concept of Yin and Yang as opposing principles in nature. According to Taoism tradition, everything in the world can be viewed as yin or yang. Yin corresponds to things that are more stable, hidden, passive and cooler, while yang corresponds to things that in nature are active, superficial and hot. The principle of yin and yang for the Taoists was that all things exist as inseparable and contradictory opposites. Applied to the anatomy of the body, yang corresponds to the muscle, skin and blood, while yin is fascia, bone, ligaments and tendon. Very mindfully undo the arch, come back to a neutral position and stretch out your arms and your legs. And when ready, do the opposite side. Our body holds and stores emotions. These are especially stored in the hip joints. During this practice, energy blockages that are locked up in these joints might be released out. So, it is not uncommon for some of these emotions to surface. It is possible that you experience sadness, anger, happiness. You might experience these emotions during class or even the day after. Emotions can be both positive and negative. Just be aware of the reason for you feeling angry, sad, or joyful. Understanding the reason will allow you to let go of these emotions and make you feel better. Very slowly come out of the pose by stretching your feet and your arms and doing some wide leg windshield wipers, whatever your body needs. And when ready, just come out to all four. Before getting into our last pose, I want to do a little bit of toe squat. So what that is, it's a pose that targets our toes. That's a part of our body most time neglected. So to get into the pose, beginning by sitting on your heels with your feet together. Now tuck the toes under and try to be on the balls of the feet, not the tippy toes. Now just sit on the heels and stay. So that was a very short pose. It's very intense, and if we haven't used our toes that much, probably we feel it right away. So I keep it usually fairly short. Tap your feet on the mat, gently shaken, and we're going to get into our final pose, which is called cat pulling his tail. So we're going to come with our back onto the mat, and we're going to start by sitting with both legs out in front of you. Now twist to the right and recline onto your right elbow. Keeping your bottom leg, which is the right leg, straight, bring your top leg, which is the left leg, forward and to the side. Now with your right hand, try to get hold of your big toe if you can. If you cannot, just try to grab whatever you can. Maybe it's your foot, maybe it's your ankle, maybe your shin. Just make sure that both shoulders are actually touching on the mat. We have a lot going on in this pose. We have a lumbar spine twist, we have a hamstring stretch, and we also have a quad stretch if we are in the full pose. Now, human bodies are anti-fragile. What that means is that the more they are stressed, the more strength they gain. That is the opposite of a fragile object that under stress simply breaks. If we try too hard to protect our body from stress, we make them fragile. The comforts we create in our lives, to some point, make our bodies more fragile. We, for instance, don't chew our food as much anymore. We eat soft food. As a result, our jaw has shrunk. We now have smaller jaws, and as a consequence, we don't have room for our wisdom teeth anymore. A lot of young people need to have them taken out because there is no space in their mouth anymore. We wear arches in our shoes and our feet become fragile. We have fallen arches because we don't stress the arches in our feet and they become weaker. With Yin Yoga, we stress the connective tissue. We make it healthier and stronger. Through other types of yoga or physical activity, we stress the muscles. We need both types of exercise for a healthy body. Mindfully let go of your feet and gently bring your spine back to a neutral position, and when ready, just do the same thing on the opposite side. There is a quote I particularly like from a person I particularly like. The person is St. Francis from Assisi in Italy. Growing up in Italy, you are accustomed to being aware of the existence of thousands of saints. Sometimes as a kid, you pick your favorite one, just like you pick your favorite soccer player. I thought that St. Francis was a cool saint. In fact, Not only I found his dedication to help those less fortunate admirable, but he was also known to speak with animals, especially wolves. Now, as a kid, I thought that was super cool. Anyway, in a recent reading about his life, I came up to one of his quotes that particularly resonated in me. The quote is, "Start doing what is necessary, then do what is possible, and suddenly you're doing the impossible." How many of us, embarking on a new project in life or simply envisioning a new goal, feel at times overwhelmed by the potential number of challenges that lay ahead? Break it down by start doing what is necessary, like paying your bills or fulfilling the most basic but important necessities. Then move on to do what is possible. Do things that you know you can accomplish at that time, that are within your means. Before you know, you'll be doing what you thought was impossible. When you are in challenging situations in life, repeat that quote to you. Start doing what is necessary, then do what is possible, and suddenly you're doing the impossible. Slowly come out of the pose, stretch your legs out, perhaps your arms above your head, and since your back is already on the mat, come to the final relaxation, Savasana or corpse pose. So bring your arms to the side of your body and let your feet fall out to the sides. Take a deep breath in, hold it for 1 or 2 seconds, and let out from your mouth. Relax. We're gonna be here in Savasana for a few minutes. Start bringing the awareness back into your body. Start wiggling your toes, moving your fingers, your wrists, your ankle. Circle them around. Very slowly come to a seated position. Cross your legs and with your spine straight, bring your hands to your heart. Thank you so much for sharing your practice with me. Namaste.